The sound of a hand meeting an 81-year-old face is quieter than you'd think, more of a crack than a slap. What made it worse was the silence that followed, not shock, but the kind of quiet that comes when a man who survived 3 tours in Vietnam decides whether this moment is worth breaking a 50-year promise to his wife never to fight again. The thug who'd just hit Henry Calloway had no idea he'd activated an informal emergency network that would bring 50 trucks from 4 states to a small Oklahoma gas station in 75 minutes. Over the next 20 minutes, you'll discover how an informal veteran support system turned a random act of violence into a masterclass in psychological warfare, and why some bonds forged in combat never break even 50 years after the last shot fired. Do you know what veteran truckers do when one of their own gets attacked? Comment below if you've ever seen something like this, because what unfolded at that Love's truck stop will show you why underestimating quiet old men is always a mistake. Henry Calloway had been driving for 11 hours straight, hauling furniture from Little Rock to Tulsa in his '98 Ford pickup with a 16-foot trailer. Not because he needed the money, his pension covered the bills, but because staying still made the memories louder. Memories of rice paddies and helicopters, of friends who never made it home, of a war that ended decades ago but never really stopped. At 81, with the first tremors of Parkinson's just starting to show in his left hand, he'd promised his late wife Martha he'd keep busy, keep useful, keep living. She'd been gone 2 years now. The driving helped. The Love's truck stop off I-44 at mile marker 203 was his usual stopping point. He knew the layout, knew the restrooms were clean, knew the coffee was decent. His routine was always the same. Fuel at pump 6, park in the back lot, grab a sandwich and coffee, rest for 20 minutes, then back on the road. Simple, predictable, safe. But today, someone was blocking pump 6. A black Cadillac Escalade with chrome rims that probably cost more than Henry's entire truck, sitting diagonal across 2 pump spaces, engine running, nobody inside. Henry waited patiently. 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes. The Escalade didn't move. Traffic was backing up behind him now. Other drivers starting to honk. Henry made a decision. He'd use pump 7 instead. The angle would be awkward with his trailer, but manageable. He pulled forward slowly, signaling his intentions, checking his mirrors 3 times like they'd taught him in his first convoy briefing in 1967. His left hand tremored slightly on the wheel, the Parkinson's announcing itself like an uninvited guest. He ignored it, focused on positioning the truck. 1 attempt, 2. On the 3rd try, he got the angle right and pulled up to pump 7. The whole process took maybe 3 minutes. That's when Chad Vickers emerged from the convenience store, designer sunglasses on his head, vape pen in one hand, phone in the other, 26 years old, and convinced the world existed to accommodate him. He saw Henry's truck, saw the slight angle that technically didn't block anything, but offended his sense of personal space, and decided this was his moment to assert dominance. "Hey, old man!" Chad's voice carried across the parking lot. Several people looked up. A mom loading kids into a minivan, a college student pumping gas, a woman trucker named Maria 3 pumps over, hand pausing on her fuel nozzle. Henry looked over slowly. His hearing wasn't what it used to be, and the wind was picking up, carrying Chad's words away before they fully landed. "Can I help you, son?" Henry's voice was polite, the kind of automatic courtesy that came from being raised by Depression-era parents who believed manners cost nothing. Chad stormed over, closing the distance in aggressive strides. "Yeah, you can help me by not blocking my vehicle with your piece of shit truck. How's that for help?" Up close, Henry could see the young man more clearly. Expensive clothes, manicured hands, the kind of softness that came from never missing a meal, never sleeping on the ground, never wondering if tomorrow you'd still be breathing. "I apologize if I'm in your way," Henry said carefully. "I waited for your vehicle to move, but nobody was inside. I'll be done here in just a few minutes." The reasonableness of Henry's response seemed to enrage Chad further. Like Henry, using complete sentences was somehow an insult. A few minutes? I got places to be, old man. Important places. I don't have time to wait for some ancient relic who can barely work a gas pump. Henry turned back to his truck, inserted his credit card, began the fueling process. His left hand tremored as he lifted the nozzle, the Parkinson's getting worse with stress and fatigue. He'd noticed that pattern. High emotion made the tremor more pronounced. He gripped the nozzle with both hands to steady it. Chad saw the tremor, and something ugly flickered across his face. Recognition of weakness. The predator's instinct. Look at you, shaking like a leaf. You shouldn't even be on the road. Probably gonna kill someone, driving that slow with your arthritis or whatever. Henry inserted the nozzle into his tank, squeezed the trigger, watched the numbers begin to climb. 0.5 gallons. 1 gallons. He focused on the rhythm of it. The mechanical simplicity. Fuel going into tank. Simple physics. Nothing to get emotional about. But Chad wasn't done. He circled Henry like a shark, performing now for the growing audience of customers who'd stopped to watch. What's wrong, Grandpa? Cat got your tongue? Or did you forget how to talk? Maybe you got that dementia thing. Maria, the woman trucker, set down her fuel nozzle and took a step toward them. The college student pulled out his phone, started recording. The mom with the kids hustled her children into the van faster, not wanting them to see whatever was about to happen. Henry's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed level. I'm just trying to fuel my truck, son. I don't want any trouble. That word trouble seemed to be the final trigger. Chad stepped right into Henry's personal space, close enough that Henry could smell the synthetic grape scent of his vape. Trouble? You think you could give me trouble? You're what, 90 years old? I could blow on you and you'd fall over. Then Chad made his first physical contact. He shoved Henry's shoulder. Not hard enough to knock him down. Henry's stance was too solid for that old muscle memory from hand-to-hand combat training, but hard enough to be unequivocally aggressive. Don't touch me. Henry's voice changed, dropped an octave, went flat and emotionless. It was the voice he'd used to tell his platoon to fix bayonets when they'd run out of ammunition in a firefight near Da Nang. The voice that came from a place beyond fear or anger. For just a second, maybe half a second, Chad's body recognized something his brain didn't. His pupils dilated slightly. His weight shifted back. Ancient instinct screaming that he'd just threatened something dangerous. But Chad's ego was louder than his instincts. He couldn't back down now. Not with people watching. Not with his phone probably blowing up with texts from friends about where the party was tonight. Not with his entire self-image built on never showing weakness. So Chad did the stupidest thing he'd ever done in his 26 years of consequence-free existence. He slapped Henry Calloway across the face. Open palm. Sharp crack that echoed across the parking lot. Hard enough to snap Henry's head to the side. Hard enough to leave an immediate red mark on the old man's weathered cheek. And then nothing. Henry didn't raise his hands, didn't stumble backward, didn't curse or cry out. He just slowly turned his head back to face forward, touched his cheek once with his right hand, the steady one, and then returned to pumping gas. 3.2 gallons. 3.5 gallons. The numbers kept climbing. Chad stood there, fist still clenched, breathing hard, waiting for a reaction that never came. The silence was crushing. Everyone in the parking lot had stopped moving. The college student's phone was definitely recording now. Maria had her hand on her CB radio. The mom had her own phone out, calling someone. And Henry just kept pumping gas. His left hand tremored. His right hand stayed steady on the nozzle. His eyes stared straight ahead at the pump display. But something in his stillness was more terrifying than any violence could have been. Chad felt it. The wrongness. The sense that he'd just crossed a line he didn't even know existed. That's what I thought, Chad said, but his voice cracked halfway through. Ain't gonna do shit, pussy. He said it loud, trying to reclaim dominance, trying to make the moment into his victory. Then he turned and strutted back to his Escalade, got in, revved the engine unnecessarily loud, and peeled out of the parking lot with tires squealing. The moment he was gone, Maria sprinted over. "Sir, are you okay? I saw everything. I'm calling the police right now." Henry shook his head slowly. "No police, I'm fine." "Fine? He assaulted you." "That's on camera." She gestured to the college student, who nodded, holding up his phone. "I got it all, man. Clear as day. That guy's going to jail." But Henry just finished pumping 8.7 gallons, $31.14, replaced the nozzle, and closed his fuel cap with hands that tremored more noticeably now. "I appreciate your concern, ma'am, but I've been hit harder by better men. I just want to get my coffee and get back on the road." Maria stared at him. Something in his eyes, some vast sadness mixed with resolve, made her realize this man had seen things that made a parking lot slap look like absolutely nothing. "At least let me get your name. In case you change your mind about pressing charges." "Henry Calloway." He started to walk toward the convenience store, then paused. "Thank you for caring. Not enough people do anymore." Inside the store, Teresa Martinez was already on the phone. She'd seen everything through the window, saw the escalation, saw the slap, saw Henry's unnatural stillness afterward. Teresa had worked at this Love's for 6 years. In that time, she'd seen her share of altercations, road rage incidents, drunks getting rowdy. But something about Henry's reaction triggered a memory from her veteran support training. Love's Corporate had instituted a program 2 years ago after several incidents involving PTSD veterans having episodes at truck stops. All managers were trained to recognize signs of veteran distress and had access to a crisis network. On the wall behind the register, partially hidden by a staff schedule, was a small laminated card. It read, "Veteran in distress. Call network first, police second." Below that was a phone number. Teresa grabbed her personal cell and dialed. The line connected after 2 rings. "Veterans Highway Network. This is dispatch. How can I help?" The voice belonged to a woman named Carol, retired Army nurse, who now coordinated a loose network of veteran truckers across the Midwest. "This is Teresa Martinez, manager at Love's Mile Marker 203 on I-44 Inches, Oklahoma. I have a veteran elderly, possibly Vietnam era, who was just assaulted by a civilian in our parking lot. Physical strike to the face. Veteran is refusing police assistance, but I'm concerned about his well-being. Can you describe the veteran?" Carol's voice was calm, professional, clipboard efficient. Teresa looked through the window. Henry was walking toward the store now, moving slowly, one hand touching the red mark on his cheek. Caucasian, approximately 80 years old, wearing work clothes, driving a white Ford pickup with trailer, license plate. She squinted. "Oklahoma veteran plates." There was a pause on the other end. Teresa heard typing. "Teresa, can you keep eyes on him while I make some calls? Don't let him leave if possible. I'm activating our network. Is the assailant still on scene?" "Negative. He fled in a black Escalade heading east on I-44. "Understood. Stand by." The line went quiet but didn't disconnect. Teresa watched Henry enter the store. Up close, the red mark on his face was angrier, darker. It would bruise. "Coffee, please," Henry said quietly. "Large. Black." "Coming right up, sir." Teresa poured the coffee with one hand while keeping her phone pressed to her ear with the other. "And sir, that's on the house today." Henry tried to protest, but Teresa was already waving him off. "Policy for veterans. We take care of our own." Something in his eyes sharpened. "How did you know I was a veteran?" "Your license plate, sir. And," she hesitated, "and the way you stood after he hit you. My father was Marines, 2 tours in Iraq. He had that same look sometimes. The one that says, 'I've survived worse than you can imagine.'" Henry's expression softened slightly. "Your father's a wise man. Was. IED in 2007. I'm sorry for your loss." They stood in silence for a moment. 2 people connected by the specific grief that comes from loving someone who went to war. Then Carol's voice came back on Teresa's phone. "Teresa, I've activated Code Victor. We have multiple units responding. ETA is 45 to 75 minutes depending on traffic. Can you delay the veteran that long?" Teresa looked at Henry, who was now sitting at a small table near the window, coffee untouched, staring at nothing. "I'll do my best." She hung up and approached his table. "Sir, I hate to ask, but would you mind waiting here for a little while? I've called some people who might want to check on you." Henry looked up, confused. "People? What people?" "Just some friends, trust me." 40 miles north, on I-44, David Calloway was leading a small convoy of 3 trucks, hauling steel beams to a construction site in Tulsa. His CB radio crackled with the usual trucker chatter, traffic reports, weather updates, someone complaining about lot lizards at the Joplin truck stop. Then, the tone changed. 3 long beeps, 2 short beeps, a pause, 3 long beeps. David's blood went cold. He grabbed his CB radio mic. "This is Thunder 6, confirm signal, over. If you believe in protecting those who protected us, subscribe for more stories of brotherhood on America's highways." Now watch what happens when you strike a veteran and his brothers still answer the call 50 years later. A woman's voice came through the static. "Thunder 6, this is Highway Network Dispatch. Code Victor is active. Veteran in distress. Love's truck stop, mile marker 203, I-44, Oklahoma. Assault by civilian. Non-life-threatening but emotional support requested. Veteran is refusing police intervention." David's mind raced. Mile marker 203. That was his father's usual stop. His father, who insisted on doing long hauls alone despite being 81. His father, who'd been acting strange lately, moving slower, making excuses not to meet for dinner, deflecting questions about his health. "Dispatch. Requesting veteran identification. Stand by." A pause. Typing sounds. Veteran identified as Henry Calloway, age 81, Vietnam veteran, Purple Heart recipient, white Ford pickup, Oklahoma plates. David's hands tightened on the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. "Dispatch. This is Thunder 6. The veteran is my father. I'm inbound from 40 miles north." ETA. He did the math. 40 miles in his loaded rig, accounting for traffic, and the governor limiting his speed to 65. ETA. 70 minutes. Requesting immediate backup. Copy Thunder 6. Broadcasting now. Carol switched to the emergency frequency that all network members monitored. What she said next would change the trajectory of the next 2 hours for dozens of people. All units. All units. Code Victor active. Assault on elderly Vietnam veteran. Location Love's I-44 mile marker 203. Sun is Thunder 6, inbound 70 minutes. Who's responding? The CB erupted. Desert Fox, inbound from Tulsa. 45 minutes. Iron Horse, diverting from Wichita Run. 60 minutes. Mama Bear, I'm at that Love's right now. On scene with veteran. More voices. Some David recognized. Some he didn't. Some were friends. Fellow veterans who'd served with his father decades ago. Some were younger vets, Iraq, Afghanistan, even a few from Somalia and Kosovo. Some weren't veterans at all, just truckers who'd adopted the code because they believed in protecting the vulnerable. Within 5 minutes, Carol had confirmed 53 units responding. Some were solo truckers diverting from their routes. Some were convoys already traveling together. Some were off-duty drivers who fired up their personal trucks and headed out. Carol's dispatch log looked like a military operation. Thunder 6, David Calloway, son of veteran, 40 miles north, ETA, 70 minutes, Priority 1. Desert Fox, Ahmed Hassan, Iraq, 35 miles east, ETA 45 minutes. Iron Horse, Marcus Webb, Afghanistan vet, 55 miles west, ETA 65 minutes. Mama Bear, Diane Rodriguez, Marine, vet, on scene, 0 minutes. Steel Rain, Jake Morrison, Gulf War vet, 28 miles south, ETA 40 minutes. The list went on. 53 trucks. From 4 states. All converging on one gas station because an old man got slapped and refused to hit back. David switched to a private channel and called his convoy partners. "Guys, I need to divert. Family emergency. Copy that, Thunder." We'll finish the delivery. You take care of business. Thanks. He took the next exit, turned around, and pushed his rig as hard as the governor would allow. 65 miles per hour felt agonizingly slow. His mind kept replaying scenarios. His father in a hospital. His father unconscious. His father finally fighting back and getting arrested. Worse, his father not fighting back because he couldn't. Because something was wrong. His father had been acting strange for months, declining invitations to family dinners, making excuses. Last month, David had dropped by unannounced and caught his father struggling to button his shirt, his left hand shaking badly. When asked about it, Henry had waved it off. Just tired, son, long day. But David had seen the tremor, had recognized it from his medic training. Early stage Parkinson's, if he had to guess. And his father hadn't said a word. Back at the Loves, Henry sat with his coffee getting cold. Teresa checked on him every few minutes, refilling his cup, asking if he needed anything. He politely declined everything except the company. You didn't have to call anyone, Henry said quietly during one of Teresa's check-ins. I'm fine. Really? With respect, sir, I don't think you are. And even if you were, you shouldn't have to be fine alone. Henry studied her face. Your father, the Marine. What was his name? Sergeant Carlos Martinez. He raised you well. He tried, didn't finish the job, but he tried. They sat in silence. Outside, the parking lot was beginning to fill up. Not with regular traffic, with trucks, big rigs, 18-wheelers. One by one they pulled in, parked in formation, not blocking traffic, not causing chaos, just present, organized, deliberate. Henry noticed. Those trucks, they're not all here for fuel. No, sir, they're not. They're here for me? Teresa nodded. Henry closed his eyes, something like pain and gratitude mixing on his face. I didn't want this. Didn't want to be a burden. You're not a burden, sir. You're a brother, and brothers don't leave brothers behind. Outside, Diane Rodriguez Mama Bear was coordinating arrivals like an air traffic controller. She'd been a Marine logistics officer before retiring to drive trucks, and her organizational skills were on full display. Desert Fox, park in row 2, slot 4. Iron Horse, row 3, slot 2. Keep the main lanes clear. We're not here to disrupt commerce. We're here to support a veteran. Each arriving truck was met with a handshake, a brief debrief, and a reminder of the protocol. No confrontation unless absolutely necessary. No violence unless he's in immediate danger. We're here to show presence, support, and remind everyone that veterans don't stand alone. By the time David arrived, 47 trucks were parked in precise formation around the Loves. It looked less like a random gathering and more like a military convoy staging area. David parked, jumped down from his cab, and sprinted into the convenience store. He found his father sitting calmly at the table, Teresa standing nearby like a sentry. The red mark on Henry's face was now a full bruise, dark purple spreading across his cheek. Dad! David's voice cracked. Henry looked up, surprised. David? What are you doing here? What am I, Dad? You got assaulted. Someone called it in. The whole network responded. Henry glanced out the window at the assembled trucks. For the first time, emotion showed on his face. His eyes reddened. His jaw worked. I didn't want you to see me like this. Like what? Like a human being who got attacked? Like an old man who couldn't defend himself. David pulled out a chair and sat across from his father. Dad, you chose not to defend yourself. There's a difference. You don't understand. I couldn't. My hand. Henry held up his left hand. It was tremoring badly now, stress amplifying the Parkinson's. I froze because I didn't trust my body to do what my brain remembered. David reached across and took his father's shaking hand in both of his. Dad, why didn't you tell me? Because saying it makes it real. Because I didn't want to be weak. You're not weak. You're 81 years old with early Parkinson's, and you're still doing long hauls. Most men half your age couldn't handle that. But today, Today you showed more strength than that punk will have in his entire life. You got hit and didn't retaliate. Not because you couldn't, but because you chose not to. That's discipline. That's control. That's everything you taught me about being a man. Henry's eyes filled with tears he'd been holding back for 2 hours. He was just a kid. Stupid kid who didn't know what he was doing. He knew. He chose violence. You chose dignity. Outside, another truck pulled in. Then another. By the 45-minute mark, all 53 confirmed units had arrived. The Love's parking lot looked like a veterans' convention. Truckers stood in small groups, talking quietly, waiting, not for orders, just for word that their brother was okay. Carol called David's cell. "Thunder 6, all units are on station. What's the status of your father?" "He's okay. Shaken up, but okay." "We're talking." "Good. Be advised, we have eyes on the assailant. He posted about the incident on social media. He's bragging about putting an old man in his place at a bar 3 miles from your location. Multiple witnesses report he's drunk and planning to return to the gas station to finish what he started. Do you want us to notify law enforcement?" David looked at his father. "Dad, the guy who hit you is drunk at a bar nearby. He's telling people he's coming back here. We can call the cops right now." Henry was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised everyone. "No, let him come. But I want to talk to him. Just talk, that's all." Teresa spoke up. "Sir, with respect, that man assaulted you. He doesn't deserve conversation. Maybe not. But maybe that's why he needs it." 20 minutes later, Chad Vickers made the second stupidest decision of his life. He'd spent the time at the bar getting progressively drunker, telling his story to anyone who'd listen, embellishing details with each retelling. In his version, the old man had cursed at him, threatened him, forced him to defend himself. His friends, if you could call people who enabled his worst behavior, friends had encouraged him. "You should go back, man. Show him you're not scared." Pride, alcohol, and a lifetime of never facing real consequences created a perfect storm of terrible judgment. Chad got in his Escalade, drove back to the Loves, and pulled into the parking lot doing at least 30 miles per hour. Then he saw the trucks, 53 18-wheelers parked in formation. Drivers standing beside their vehicles, all of them facing the convenience store, all of them watching his arrival. Chad's alcohol-soaked brain took a moment to process what he was seeing. Then he noticed details. Stickers on the trucks. Veteran-owned, Iraq vet, Vietnam, 67 to 69. Purple Heart recipient, Afghanistan. The people standing beside them, ages ranging from 30s to 70s. Different races, different genders, different backgrounds, but all wearing similar expressions, patient, calm, utterly unyielding. Chad parked much more carefully this time and got out slowly. His earlier bravado was evaporating fast. David walked out of the convenience store first. Behind him came Henry, moving slow but steady, Teresa at his side like a guardian. The assembled truckers didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. Chad felt 53 sets of eyes on him, felt the weight of their collective judgment. "You came back," David said. His voice was level, controlled, the voice of someone who'd dealt with hostile situations before. Chad's rehearsed tough guy speech died in his throat. "My father has something he wants to say to you. You're going to stand there and listen." Chad nodded. Mute. Henry stepped forward. Up close, Chad could see the full extent of the bruise he'd caused. Could see the tremor in the old man's left hand. Could see something in those eyes that made him want to run. "What's your name, son?" Henry's voice was quiet. Chad Vickers." "Chad, I'm Henry Calloway. I served 3 tours in Vietnam. I've been hit before. By enemy soldiers. By people who wanted me dead. You hit me because I was slow. Because I inconvenienced you. Because you could." Chad tried to find words, but nothing came out. "I want you to understand something. I didn't fight back today not because I couldn't, though truthfully, my Parkinson's might have made it difficult, but because I chose not to. I chose not to, because 50 years ago, I made a promise to my wife that I was done with violence. That the man who came home from war would be better than the man who went." Henry gestured to the assembled truckers. "These people, these brothers and sisters, they came here because someone called a code we use when veterans are in distress. 53 trucks from 4 states. Some of them drove hours. Some of them abandoned deliveries. Some of them risked their jobs. Not to hurt you, not to get revenge, but to remind me that I'm not alone. When you hit me, you broke something, not my face. That'll heal. You broke the social contract that says we protect the vulnerable instead of exploiting them. These people are here to remind you that every action has consequences." Chad found his voice, shaky and small. I didn't know. I'm sorry. I was just angry, frustrated, entitled." David stepped forward. "Let me tell you what you didn't know. My father is 81 years old. He has Parkinson's disease. His wife, my mother, died 2 years ago. He drives these routes not because he needs the money, but because staying home reminds him she's gone. He's one of the gentlest, kindest men you'll ever meet. And you hit him because he was slow." Chad was crying now, not manipulative tears, real, terrified tears, of someone finally understanding the gravity of what they'd done. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Henry studied him for a long moment. "I believe you are. Right now, in this moment, with 50 trucks watching, I believe your remorse is real. But Chad, I want you to remember this feeling. I want you to carry it with you. Because next time, and there will be a next time, you're frustrated, angry, wanting to lash out. I want you to remember what happened here today. I will. I swear I will." "Good." Henry turned to David. "I'm not pressing charges, but I want his information in case I change my mind." Chad handed over his license without hesitation. David photographed it, along with Chad's vehicle registration and insurance. "We have your information. We have video of the assault. We have 53 witnesses. If you ever put your hands on another person without cause, we'll know. This network spans 12 states and over 2,000 drivers. You understand?" Chad nodded frantically. "Yes, sir. I understand." "Then go home. Sober up. Think about who you want to be. Because the person you were this afternoon, that person ends here." Chad got in his Escalade and left. Not speeding this time. Carefully, deliberately. The moment he was gone, one of the veteran truckers, a man named Marcus, Afghanistan vet, started clapping. Slow, deliberate. Others joined. Within seconds, all 53 were applauding. Not for victory, for Henry, for dignity maintained, for choosing wisdom over violence. Henry stood there, overwhelmed, as his brothers and sisters in arms showed their respect the only way they knew how. Then, one by one, they came forward, shook his hand, clasped his shoulder, shared brief words. "Semper Fi, brother. Thank you for your service. You showed that kid more mercy than he deserved. We're here if you need us. Always." It took 30 minutes for everyone to pay their respects. Then, as organized as they'd arrived, they departed, trucks firing up, pulling out in sequence, returning to their routes and deliveries. Within 45 minutes, the parking lot looked normal again, like nothing had happened, like 53 trucks hadn't just converged for one old man's dignity. David and Henry sat in Henry's truck cab, just the two of them now. "Dad, you can't keep doing this alone." "I know." Henry's voice was tired. "I know. The Parkinson's. We need to talk to doctors, figure out treatment, see if you can still drive safely. And if I can't, then we figure out what's next. Together. Not alone. Together." Henry nodded slowly. "Your mother used to say I was too stubborn for my own good. She was right about most things." "Yeah, she was." They sat in silence, watching the sun set over the Oklahoma plains. Finally, Henry spoke again. "David, thank you. For coming. For the network. For everything. Dad, you taught me something a long time ago. You said the most important mission is taking care of your people, making sure everyone gets home. Today, we made sure you got home. That's all. Henry gripped his son's hand, his right hand, the steady one, and held tight. I was so scared today. Not of that boy, of being weak, of being useless, of losing what makes me, me. You're not losing anything. You're transitioning, adapting. That's what Marines do. That's what veterans do. We adapt and overcome. I'm Army, son. Same difference. They laughed. Real laughter. The kind that breaks tension and heals wounds that aren't visible. As darkness fell, they drove together to Tulsa. Henry in his truck, David following close behind. The CB radio crackled with normal trucker chatter, but underlying it, on the veteran frequency, periodic check-ins. Thunder 6? Status? All good. En route to destination. Copy. Safe travels, brother. 3 months later, Henry sold his truck. The Parkinson's had progressed enough that his doctor revoked his commercial driving certification. It was devastating and necessary, but he didn't stop working. David brought him on as a dispatcher for his company. Henry coordinated routes, managed logistics, stayed connected to the road without being behind the wheel. He was good at it, better than he'd expected, and he stayed active in the Veterans Highway Network, became a dispatcher himself, taking calls from Teresa and others, coordinating responses when Code Victor was activated. Returned the favor that 53 people had done for him. On slow days, he'd think about Chad Vickers, wonder if the kid had changed. Wonder if that moment of fear and shame had actually taught him anything. He didn't have to wonder long. 6 months after the incident, Henry received a letter, handwritten, 3 pages long. It started, Mr. Calloway, you don't know me anymore, but I'm the person who hit you at the Love's truck stop. I've been in therapy since that day. I've been sober for 127 days. I got a job, a real job, where I have to work, not one my dad bought for me. I volunteer at a veterans center on weekends. I'm trying to become the person I should have been when I met you. I know I can never take back what I did. I know sorry isn't enough. But I wanted you to know that what you said that day about remembering this feeling I do, every single day, I remember, and I'm trying to be better. Thank you for not pressing charges. Thank you for giving me a chance to change. I don't deserve it, but I'm trying to earn it. Chad Vickers. Henry read the letter 3 times. Then he wrote back, short, simple. Chad, change is possible for anyone willing to do the work. Keep going, Henry. They exchanged letters occasionally after that. Henry never forgot what Chad had done. But he chose to believe that people could grow, could learn, could become better versions of themselves. Because if Henry could come home from war and choose peace, then maybe anyone could choose to be better than their worst moment. The Code Victor system continued. Expanded, actually. More veteran truckers joined. The network grew to over 3,000 members across 20 states. They responded to everything from medical emergencies to veteran suicide prevention to cases like Henry's moments where brothers and sisters just needed to know they weren't alone. David eventually told the story at a veterans conference. How 53 trucks had converged to support his father. How dignity had defeated violence without throwing a punch. The story spread, became part of veteran trucker culture, a reminder that the bonds forged in combat never really break. That duty doesn't end when you take off the uniform. That some codes, unofficial, informal, built on trust and brotherhood, matter more than any regulation. Henry lived another 8 years. The Parkinson's progressed, but slowly. He stayed sharp, stayed engaged, stayed useful. When he finally passed at 89, his funeral procession was over 2 miles long. 53 trucks, some with the same drivers from that day at the Loves, some with new drivers who'd heard the story, formed an honor guard convoy. They drove him from the funeral home to the veterans cemetery, flags flying, CB radios silent except for one transmission. Code Victor, inactive. Brother Henry is home. Over. Copy. Godspeed, brother. Over. At the burial, David folded the flag himself and handed it to his children. Told them the story of the day their grandfather chose dignity over violence. The day 53 trucks proved that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who answer the call when you need them most. And somewhere, in another state, Chad Vickers, now 3 years sober, married, working as a counselor for at-risk youth, saw the obituary online. He took the day off work, drove to the cemetery, and left a small flag at Henry's grave. On it he'd written, "Thank you for teaching me what strength really means, CV." The attendant who found it didn't understand its significance. But David, visiting the grave later that week, recognized the initials. He left the flag there because Henry would have wanted that, would have been proud that his mercy had mattered, that his choice to teach instead of punish had created ripples that touched lives he'd never know about. That's what Code Victor really means. Not just responding to emergencies, but believing that veterans and maybe all people deserve dignity, support, and the chance to be better tomorrow than they were today. Some battles are won with bullets and bombs, but the most important ones? Those are won with patience, compassion, and 53 trucks refusing to let a brother stand alone.